Hi everyone, this is Lynn Davenport and Hollie Plemons, and we're going to have a really just candid conversation about Senate Bill 2 and school choice and what's happening in Texas all around the issue of school choice. So thank you, Hollie, for doing this, because I know that we have been frustrated with the narrative that's put out there, the marketing around school choice. And you and I spend a lot of time at the grassroots level and at the state level. And we've testified against these bills. I've been doing it since 2016. I know what I'm talking about. Hollie knows what she's talking about. She'll go line by line with these bills, which is awesome. One time we were driving to Austin and I'm driving and she's in the back seat and she is going line by line. So by the time we get there, it really was effective because you had you sat there and you said page 12 and you went through what are the issues with page 12. So you've done that with Senate Bill 2. It passed the Senate, I guess that was 2 weeks ago, right? And so she had gone down there to testify against it. And what happens is it's what we call, it's a false dilemma fallacy, that if you don't support vouchers and education savings accounts, you must be a liberal. You must be allies with Gene Wu. I've never spoken with Gene Wu, a Democrat. He's the Democrat caucus chair. I had to look it up.
I had to look him up.
I don't talk to
I got called
Gene
him.
Wu. I do remember there's something, with his politics, in Chinese, CCP stuff. And that's the only thing I'd ever heard of him.
Like, I know nothing
Whatever.
about him. We're Republicans.
Right.
We've both been Republican delegates before. I am a current precinct chair. Lynn was a precinct chair. I'm an area leader. I sued my school district. She sues her school district. We're not liberals.
Right. I sued them on the mask.
Me too.
I mean, give me a break.
That's what got me into this. We're not liberals, and we have a conservative issue to this bill, and we're standing with the Republican Party of Texas principles and the platform and the plank and the ballot language from the proposition, which SB2 is not. And
so let's go over that. So the ballot language, it was very simple.
Very.
And what I like that it was simple. Okay, people can understand that. The problem was it was too simple, and the bill is not simple. The bill is 33 pages, and it's laced with issues with strings and accountability measures that we don't want on private and homeschool. So Proposition 11 on the ballot for the Republican primary said, Texas parents and guardians should have the right to select schools, whether public or private, for their children. Agreed, but we already have that right.
Yeah.
So what the government gives you, the government can take away. We do have that right. So that was deceptive semantics, but at the end it says, comma, and the funding should follow the student. Well, what's the issue with that?
So the issue with the funding following the student for the Proposition 11, SB2 is not following the student. I have an issue with the language to begin with, but then also in the bill, it's not following the student.
It's not following the student, so where you have the money, cash in hand, that you then go pay your tuition at the private school, because it has an intermediary. It has a banking scheme that they set up.
Yep.
That's why they'll tell you it's not vouchers. They're wrong when they call it vouchers. I just saw Genevieve Collins. It's not vouchers. Then they're either lying or being disingenuous. Blah, blah, blah. What? Okay, no, it's not a voucher. That's just a generic term that they use for school choice.
And it's what
dollars.
Voters understand.
It's what they understand, because it's like when
you
you're
say
talking
ESA,
about
they don't know what we're talking about.
it's like Band-Aid. Well, not all Band-Aids are Band-Aid brand.
Bandages.
Bandages. It's a bandage.
See?
Right, see? Okay, so, and it's a Band-Aid. It's not, I'm kidding.
It's a bandage.
It's a Band-Aid fix. I'm kidding.
Oh.
No, so, okay, but their education savings accounts, it's a banking scheme. If you look at the whole mechanism, it's a banking scheme. Yeah. And when we say that Senate Bill 2 is a vendor bill, we say that because there are vendors that stand to gain financial benefits if the bill passes. That's why we call it a vendor bill.
Yes.
Hello.
We're recording. My husband is scared. We're keeping it it real here on the couch with Holly and Lynn.
On the Davenport.
Okay, on the Davenport with the Davenports, yeah. Okay, so keep going.
Okay, so the funding is not going to be given to the parents. That's what the electeds and the candidates that have now become your electeds have told you, is that the money is going to be at your discretion. It's going to be given to you. It's your money. It's not your money. Because very few of us are paying $10,000 per year for M&O taxes. So you have your M&O taxes and you have
Maintenance
your
and
INS
operations.
Yes.
M&O.
And interest and sinking. That's your bond debt. And so they're just talking about the M&O because you're going to have to pay your INS because that's what was voted on by your community. And if you don't want to pay that, then knock doors and tell people not to vote on bonds. And so your M&O dollars is not what you're paying in $10,000. And that would be per child. So very few people are doing that. So you're actually sticking your hand in your neighbor's pockets and you're taking their dollars.
Well, and more importantly, so when we fund the public school system, we have to do that. It's compulsory. It's in the Texas Constitution.
Yes.
Article 7 says we have to make provision for public free schools. Okay, so if people don't like that, then you have to go and make an amendment to that, to the Constitution. So that's something that we can't get around. And then we also pay for charter schools,
Yes.
which use public funding and some private funding. So
And that's the second lane of
that's
education.
the second lane. The third lane we would be paying for if vouchers or education savings accounts, if Senate Bill 2 or another bill passes, that's a third lane of education. And then we also suspect that the virtual education bill will pass this session, we've been told by the lobbyists. Okay, so if that happens, that's 4 lanes of education that we'll be paying for. So people assume that if vouchers or education savings accounts pass, then that will drain the one lane in order to fund the other. That's not how it works. Now, if there was a mass exodus of public school students, yes, I mean, you would have less average daily attendance funding, the butts in the seat funding in the schools. Yes. However, we're still paying for more children that we're absorbing because we will be funding the private school children that we're not funding right now. But if this bill passes, we're talking about the growth of government. So let's talk about the amount of the bill. If you look at the fiscal note, because if you ever want to know what a bill is, look at the fiscal note.
And the reason they call it a bill is because it is a bill that you are being given to pay. And so in the fiscal note is, that's the most upsetting to me because that's the biggest red flag of an attack on my family and the option that I have chosen to educate my child. And I have no more options left. Right. If this bill passes, my option goes away. There's 10 options in the state of Texas. I've done all 10. Pretty much a unicorn mom here because very few parents have actually done that many options with their kids. And so it states in the bill that there's $1 billion set aside, and they're talking about 100,000 kids benefiting from that. But you got to take out the 3% for the comptroller, which is $30 million. You got to take out $50 million, which is 5% for the vendors. And that's every single $1 billion. 5% goes off for those vendors. 3% goes off for the comptroller. And then we have to pay for the marketing of the ESA program. Bill. That's in the bill.
I mean, that's disgusting. I'm sorry. I think that is disgusting.
I do too.
Because we get after the school districts for their indirect marketing for the bonds.
Yes.
You know, and so now you're running these vendor deals through the legislature.
Yeah.
And if you add it up through 2030, it's 4.55 billion. Is that right?
Well, if you go all the way through 2030, it's 11,034 million. They say there's going to be a savings of 1.5 billion. So fine, I'll give them the savings on that. And they're saying the savings is coming from the kids that are going to leave the public schools. But the fiscal note also states that only 98,000 kids in 5 years that they are expecting to leave the public schools. So when they say the public schools are awful and we're doing this to save them from the public schools, it's 98,000 kids in 5 years for $11 billion. And that is not a solution.
And we have 5.5 million kids or 4 million?
6?
No, I'm saying in public schools.
Oh, in public school.
And about 6.1 total
Yeah.
children in Texas.
In the state of Texas. And then they're saying in just 5 years, they believe there's only going to be 105,000 children still in true private school. That's going to be your elite private schools. That's not going to be the $10,000 schools. That's not going to be the 12,000, the more affordable private schools. And it's also very telling when you look at where Abbott has gone on his parent empowerment tour to promote this program. He's going to these little tiny towns where they have one little private school. The last one he just went to, they have 125 kids. Why are you going there? Like, why don't you go to a public school? Why is he not going into Dallas and Fort Worth and Houston and San Antonio, where we have our worst large ranked ISDs that they're saying, you know, this is the major problem. Fort Worth ISD is my district. Why is Abbott not coming to Fort Worth and doing this parent empowerment tour?
Right.
He's going to these small schools that they're going to be sucking up, because the purpose of this is not to get kids out of public education. It is not to save them. It is to suck up the kids that are homeschooling and that are private schooling so that they can get their data. And it screamed to me in the bill that they have to take a survey. And surveys are something that I threw a major fit about in my school district of data mining. I literally caught where they were going to sell my kids' data to the CDC and to Ohio State University.
Well, and TEA was selling data. And I want to bring up this. So Abbott is using the failures of the public schools, which are under his purview. He appoints the TEA commissioner, Mike Morath. He appointed him in 2016 and he was sworn in. So he's been there 9 years. And if education is failing, he needs to look in the mirror. And we have issues at the local level in our public schools.
Absolutely.
So why would we not have the legislature fighting for the things that we're wanting to flee the public schools for? And why would you flee the public schools only to accept government regulated school choice? That makes no sense. So all the things that they are adding to these bills are the things that we're trying to flee the public schools. Why would we impose that on the escape, you know, the options that we have that are not government regulated?
And was it Sarah Fields that talked about the abusive boyfriend? That what vouchers are is that you're fleeing the abusive boyfriend,
right,
and then opening the door back up so that the abusive boyfriend can come back into your new apartment that you just got to escape the abuse.
Abbott's a bad boyfriend. He's a bad governor, and you know, you and I have discussed a lot. People don't understand when we say that he's a globalist and that education savings accounts is another form of, I mean, it's a
they think we're
globalist
crazy.
plan. I know, and that's fine. I don't really care, but because if you look at UNESCO's plans and the United Nations 17 Sustainable Development Goals, school choice and vouchers actually play into that. And they have language. I was just looking up that
they call it.
Yeah, I had not even heard
the financial thing that I just sent you. Yes, I remember that. But there is a document that clearly states from UNESCO that they are about.
It was something finance.
Yeah.
It was like a unique financing something. Anyway, it doesn't really matter. The point is
demand side financing.
Demand side financing, yes. And so
there it says UNESCO, demand side financing, and the very first word is vouchers. So this does come from UNESCO, which is the education arm of the UN. We don't have tinfoil hats. It just so happens to be there.
And it's not just Republicans. I mean, people don't understand that Obama was for school choice, and so was Joe Lieberman. Joe Lieberman came to Dallas in 2017 or so and was at Dallas Country Club. And I went to a free event there and saw him. That was the first time I'd seen Mandy Drogan of Texas Public Policy Foundation. So you have all of these think tanks that are funded by big donors, and they are funded so that they will push these things through the legislature. So Texas Public Policy Foundation has been pushing school choice for more than 2 decades. That's why they were created in the 90s. And now in Trump's cabinet, I think we should talk about Trump too, because Trump is really weighing in on the Senate Bill 2 debate, and he's strongly encouraging the House the House reps to support Senate Bill 2.
And he hasn't read this.
Of course he hasn't read it.
And who his advisors are around him that are telling him to support this bill, I highly doubt that they read it. And
they're supporting Rollins.
They're supporting the idea.
Yes, that's the thing. School choice really is an emotional response, because who doesn't want choice? And who doesn't want options? If
you're upset with your school and you don't have any money, and you don't have any charter schools, or homeschooling's not an option for you for whatever reason it is, and you don't know where to go, and you've gone to your school board and there's no place to go, that's me. And I had to sell my car and had to make great sacrifices so that I could send one of my children to private school. And that was the personal accountability of being a conservative, is I didn't ask anybody else to help me with this situation. But I understand the cries from parents that are upset about what's going on. And this isn't school choice, it's school chance. And they have a chance at getting out. But when there's only 25,000 open private school seats in the state of Texas, let's just say 100,000 vouchers comes out when this program rolls out in 27, 28, or 26, 27. And where are they going to go? If there's only 25,000 open seats, where are they going to go?
Well, that's the thing, is like in a lot of areas there's a desert.
Right.
They don't have options. But the thing is, even if they did, even if the schools accepted them, which we know that doesn't change. Private schools can and are, they can discriminate.
Well,
and we're not saying that
they can't take a nonverbal child. They don't have the resources that our public schools have for that child. So I don't think that the private school is necessarily discriminating. They can't serve them. They can't do a good job with them.
On that note, so when I was talking about Abbott using the failures of the public schools, so we had a situation a few years ago where Abbott's speechwriter was looking for cases of disgruntled parents who were, they were mad at the public schools. And so TEA's high-ranking official, Steve Leschelow, he called on a parent that we know and basically said, hey, what better way to stick it to Joshua ISD? And TEA had the complaint of this parent. The parent had gone to the TEA as a last resort because the district wasn't doing what it was supposed to do on this bullying issue. So Leschelow calls her and says, what better way to stick it to Joshua ISD than to talk to the governor's speechwriter and tell your story. So the governor was going to use this mom whose child has suffered in the public school system, and instead of the TEA following up on this, they sat on it until the governor needed a case.
Until they could use it.
Until they could use it. So they're using, so when we say also that the system was broken on purpose, it was broken on purpose, and it was done through bad legislation, not only at the federal level, but the state level. And our legislators, instead of working to help us fix the public schools, return to a classical model of education, unravel some of these bad bills that are a stronghold on our ISDs, and including things like recapture. I mean, it's a redistribution of wealth from our school. They're taking the money from the local taxpayers and, funneling it through the government and redistributing it. And we're at, year over year, the taxpayers are saddled. Instead of fixing those things, the legislature for 20 years, they go and they try and push school choice, and it sucks all the energy out of the room.
We're spending millions of dollars.
Oh, absolutely.
These sessions are not free.
No, every bill that just about every bill that they
and
pass,
every single invited testimony we pay for to be there.
That's right. They fly them in, they stack them on a panel, and then the people, we go at the end of the day, we get 2 minutes, and then half
and
the
most
time
of the senators are gone.
They're gone. They're in the break room. They're talking to whoever.
They tell you that they're listening. Where they are. Well, that's awesome. But they sat for the people that were there that were going to benefit. I was at this hearing, 37% of the room was reserved seats. And
but they had the
and it was
rows
every single
reserve.
Person
that
was coming
new. They didn't just do that.
Was just for it. And then finally, whenever you got to the people, it was like 85-90% of the people that were saying that we're not for this. And let's look at social media. And I know that, not everybody's on social media, not everybody's on Facebook, not everybody's on Twitter, but go and look at Abbott's post, his tweets on school choice. Go look at Representative Nate Schatzline. You can go pick any of them. It doesn't matter.
Right.
Go look at the comments, and the comments are overwhelmingly negative against this, and read them. They're from Republicans. Because this is not what the Republicans were asking for when they were asking for school choice. This bill is not it.
And
this bill is not going. Oh yeah, 20,000 doors in the last 2 primaries. I've never had one person tell me that they want this. If they bring it up, they tell me they don't want it, and they always wanted to know, where my candidate stood on this particular issue. There's so many people that talk to me. I talk to an absolute ton of people, and you can say the same thing. Any room that we go into and we speak, nobody's
I go to Republican clubs. I have one of my own here in Lake Highlands in Dallas, but I go to other counties. I was in Corsicana a few weeks ago while she was at the legislature. When I give my talk and I just spell out in this particular case, we had a bill to talk about it as a whole. I mean, most of the bills aren't that different. Now, last session, they baked a bunch of really social type welfare
to entice the Democrats.
Yeah,
they wanted us to pay for furthering the leftist agenda to try to get this, school choice passed for a tiny percentage of kids. It was less than 1%.
But the bill was $36 billion. And it had $50,000 in there for communities and schools.
To each campus, not each ISD.
And that's huge. I saw a friend of mine there, and he was there late at night. And I'm like, what are you doing here? I said, you're not supporting this bill, are you? And he said, yeah. And I said, have you read it? I said, you're okay with giving all of these entitlements and subsidies? And he's like, well, it's a bad bill. It's not, but we got to get something. We've been trying to do this for 20 years. I'm like, wait, so you've got to so they don't care what's in it. They're just like, just get it passed.
Yep.
We'll deal with that later. No. Do you know
how many bills have they ever fixed?
None.
There's a percentage out there over the last 10 years, and it's 0.03% that a former SREC member said that's the amount of bills that they go back and they correct. So if this bill is going to pass, it needs to be the most perfect bill that matches what the voters were asking for. And I am very concerned about Texas turning blue. I am concerned with Texas turning blue over this issue of Republican voters being so frustrated over what's happening. And when if it does pass, when it passes and it's implemented, and then these voters are not getting what the elected officials told them that they were going to get. And in small communities,
so they apply
those
for
reps,
and they
make these promises.
Exactly, and people don't understand. I mean, it is hard to take the time to do what you and I do. It's pretty much a full-time job, but they call it universal.
That we don't get paid for.
Right. I know. It's like
everybody else gets paid. We don't get paid. We just advocate for the taxpayers. Our husbands pay for us.
The one just walked in. He's like, no, she's not get paid for this. But so they call it universal school choice, and that's also deceptive semantics because first of all, when you tell people about universal health care, they say no, and you say universal basic income, no, universal
school choice.
School choice.
What?
They're like, yeah, but then think about it. But that language is interesting because they'll say it's universal eligibility, but if you read the bill, it isn't for everybody, and not everybody can do this. And in Arizona, it was $900 million. It broke the bank. They didn't anticipate that many people would overload the system with requests for their ESA, and so it grew exponentially. Well, the government paid. I mean, Arizona's paying for that, and they did not anticipate it being that. I guess.
Well, and another thing to talk about the other states. The people that push this program, they're always wanting to talk about the other states. And I'm really concerned about Texas. I'm concerned about the language in the bill that we're going to be passing. And we're a huge state. We are very different than most other states in how we're made up of our large cities that are so large, and then our rural communities that some of them just can be so teeny tiny. And it's very, very interesting the way that the people that are pushing this want to talk about these other states, but then we just had the national report card come out for the entire nation and all the different states, and their scores, whether they're a voucher state or not, are declining or they flatlined.
Well, I mean, they're like Florida, for example.
Right.
You know, that's Jeb Bush, and Jeb Bush has been pushing school choice and technology and bad reforms, just like his brother did. And Florida has declined their NAEP scores, and they always cite Florida and Arizona as the gold standard. It's not.
But we have other states that have done it a lot longer that are up north.
Mm-hmm.
They're pulling back on their voucher programs now. Their scores are not improving because the problem is the government. And if they know, and we know that our legislators now know that parents do not want their kid taking the STAR. So they changed the language in SB2
who was
to any.
There was one of the legislators that was telling you, oh no, we're going to take that language out for homeschoolers having to take Nate Schatzline. And I'm debating Nate, and I'm going to be on a panel on the 24th for Dallas Express. But Nate's one of the panelists, and so is for Dallas County GOP chair Alan West. And so that should be interesting. That'll be fun.
But I mean, like, they know that parents don't want the STAR.
No, and so instead of fighting to reject that, which comes from the federal level under No Child Left Behind and Every Student Succeeds Act, which should be repealed and rejected. Our governor should be saying, no, we're Texas and we're going to do it our way, and we reject your federal funds. We don't need them. We've got all these, billions in surplus. We don't need that. We should
be leading the charge.
We should be leading the charge. I mean, where is his courage to do that? And then you've got Trump saying that he wants to end the Department of Education. Well, of course, you and I would support that. There's no constitutional justification for the federal Department of Education. It says nowhere in the Constitution. That's all relegated to the states. Mm-hmm. That is supposed to be a local decision. Education is local, and our founders knew that. So I'm all for rejecting and dismantling the Department of Education. That's not really what he's doing. And so setting up or shifting the money into other agencies, I don't support that. And even school choice at the federal level, that's not the role of the government. If he really wants to shut it, he should shut it down and return the money to the states. Yeah. But we don't even need Trump to do that, because we are Texas. We should be able to say we reject this. And we also, Abbott should be abolishing the TEA. He should be lobbying all of our legislators, instead of all this school choice bullshit. They should be saying we reject the TEA. All the millions running through the TEA and the 20 education service centers, that money, we could have funded school choice by now.
And this bill grows TEA, it grows the comptroller's office, and they say, oh, it's only 42 employees. That's over $5 million a year in salary, and that's just what they are assuming. There's people that are coming out, oh, it's just assume. Right, it is assumed, but when I look at the numbers and the facts and the data of how many private school seats we have, and how are they going to implement this, and then they're going to have to do the advertising of this program,
which is ridiculous.
Is that going to be a private advertising firm that's going to come in and be trying to get these dollars to advertise it? Is it going to be something that's done internally? We don't know, and the bill is very vague, and the fact that the comptroller makes the rules. What rules? What rules does he get to
They haven't defined that.
Right, I know he's elected and we could unseat him, but do you know how expensive that race is going to be when he gets to accept bribes to pick these vendors? Gifts, grants, and donations.
Like Ed Choice, when we say this is a vendor bill, they were the ones who were on the stacked panel for when Hollie went to testify a few weeks ago. They're the ones that are brought in. They roll out the red carpet. They let them run their mouths. And if you look at other states where they're flown in from, they are making bank. That's why we say it's a banking scheme. So Nate can sit there and appeal to the emotions of his voters and say 88% of Republican. Well, it's not true.
That's not true.
It's not true.
12% of Texas voters.
I mean, nobody
voted
votes
in that
but
primary.
those who did, 88%. But that declined from it declined 17% from the previous primary. So it's actually declining in support. And at the state convention, we dropped school choice from the top 8 priorities to number 9. So it's not even a priority, but it's the number 1 priority of our governor. That should tell you it's an agenda. He's not interested in solving the border crisis, election integrity, crime, inflation, all of these things. And their solution on property tax relief is just to spend more money.
Is to give us more money from the surplus, which
is over taxation.
Coupons,
right.
But that doesn't help people that are in apartments. That doesn't help people that are renters. And, the cost of housing has gone up so much that we have a lot of renters, and that's not helping them. And we should be abolishing property taxes. And how are we
You can't here's the
know.
thing. They're mutually exclusive. They talk about abolishing property taxes while also supporting school choice. That you can't.
Did you see Michael Quinn Sullivan today?
No.
Where he admitted that this is a third lane of education
he
and
did.
basically a new tax.
Yeah.
I really appreciated him doing that.
I know, he was telling the
pointing
truth.
that out, because how are we getting rid of property taxes, which Texans are done with this. We do not want property taxes.
Right.
If they're creating a third lane of education and a new tax for us to fund.
He admitted that school choice would essentially be a new what was his wording? He said it was
avenue.
A new avenue. Mm-hmm. Exactly.
I said lane. He said
I
avenue.
created a meme. I needed to get I needed my son to do a Photoshop, but I just drew it with my finger. But it's basically a picture of a 4-lane highway, and it's vouchers and charter schools and virtual ed and public schools. We're going to be paying for all 4 of those. I can't say it any clearer than that.
We're all going to have to pay more money, and it's coming out of the general fund. Mm-hmm. Brandon Creighton said that SB2 is coming out of the surplus, which pours into the general fund. And
he's the author of the bill.
Yes. And one thing that just really irks me is that last session, they got rid of the fact that we have to go and have our cars inspected in most areas in Texas. For me in Tarrant County, for you in Dallas, we still got to go. But you still have to pay your fee. It's $7 to the state per car. That's a tax. Why didn't they get rid of that fee if we have such a massive surplus? If they were interested in giving us our money back, that one, it's $7. Mm-hmm. Why didn't you just give it back? Why did you, you don't have to go get your car inspected, but you still have to pay that fee. That's nonsense. And then the social media stuff that's going on that we're seeing, I talked earlier about look at the comments, but Club for Growth is in DC, and they have just recently come out and said they're going to be spending 6 to 7 figures advertising for SB2. Why is a club it's not like a political club? Why are they, it's a donor club. Why are they coming into Texas and advertising this program? Why is the founder of TikTok, Jeff has TikTok, whatever, I don't use that platform, I'm old. Why is he donating money from Pennsylvania to want this? Like, there's something else that they are after here, and they're coming in and they're pushing this to confuse voters. And I take this as a compliment, Lynn, and I hope that you do too. It is a compliment.
What?
That it's the words that we say. It's the things that we are going to these clubs, we're talking to voters, we're educating voters on social media. And so now they're having to bring in Club for Growth to do advertising to counteract what we're saying. And we're just the people.
Thing is, it's like, we are the people, and we've lived the experience.
Yes, we're moms.
And the thing is that the attacks are coming from the right.
Yeah.
And there was another legislator who sold out to the school choice agenda, and she was like, "What? This is another example of eating our own." No, our governor's eating our own.
Right.
He went after seats just for this one vote.
Yes.
He went after Republicans, not Democrats. He used his war chest to go after Republicans. So when people come after us on this, they're most likely they're usually paid. They're actual political, either strategists or they are vendors or lobbyists. They are the ones that come after us, and they're
not like us. We're organic.
They're not, no, and that's why it is a threat to the agenda to have real people who, I mean, you were knocking on doors. I was a precinct chair. I've run for school board. I've run for Dallas College. Like, I'm a staunch conservative.
Right.
I'm not a Democrat. I'm not, you can look at my voting record. So they just lie, and they've created a website about me and my friend Mary Lowe with Families Engaged, and they've come after us. You know, it's I know
disgusting.
we're over the target, but it is disgusting. But people who know us,
it's undoing our representative form of government.
It is.
And we are supposed to lobby to our government for what we want, because we're a constitutional republic. If you can keep it, we're trying to keep it. And so we're saying, hey, we read this bill and it's really bad. And after the hearing on SB2, I stayed an extra day and I knocked on legislators' doors and gave them my notes. I gave them solution. I gave them my business card. I said, I'm going to be here until 2:00. I want to talk to you. Zero of those senators wanted to talk to me about this. And that's actually upsetting, because you had a constituent, and I did go to my senator and they did not want to talk to me about this. None of them wanted to say, okay, you're a taxpayer, you're a mom, you're a precinct chair, you're an area leader, you know, you block walk, you're active, all of the extra things of just being, hey, I'm a taxpayer that showed up in Austin. And none of them wanted to say, what are your concerns? What can we do to fix it? That says they're not working for me, and they're not working for my children. They're not working for my future generations. They're working for donors. And so we're about to find out, when this vote comes to the House, is Texas for sale? Because Texas is literally about to be sold, because if these donors can force all of these different electeds to vote for things that their constituents don't want, then what's saying that they're not going to come with a different bill later, these same donors, and push it on them if our state's for sale? Like, it is 911, all the alarms going off, all hands on deck. This is going to be the biggest issue, and it's not just about parents.
And it solves nothing.
It solves nothing.
It solves absolutely nothing.
But there's people that say, oh, I don't have kids, I don't care. You're going to pay for it.
Yeah.
You're going to pay for
We're
it.
going to absorb the cost of private school, essentially.
Well, and also, if we don't take care of our kids that are our lowest income kids and give them an education, then how are they going to stand on their own 2 feet and pay their taxes and be a contributing member of society if they're living off the government? And a lot of people that live off the government, they vote blue because that's where they get their handouts from. And so if we're wanting to keep Texas red, no more subsidies. And no more ignoring the schools that are not educating the kids, that are just being turned out. In my district, you can go to any Chick-fil-A or McDonald's, or maybe not Chick-fil-A, but you can go to a McDonald's or something like that and pay in cash. And they struggle to pay you back, or they don't know how to read. Somebody's told me a story that they have a gas station
and they count back the change.
And they don't know the numbers that are on the cash register. It is a major, major problem.
And they can't sound out phonetically, like the way that they'll say my name.
Yes.
And
it's,
I mean, it's a result of, it's a deliberate dumbing down of a nation.
It's like going backwards from where we were. And my father was extremely poor. He had an outhouse, and my grandmother had to give up 2 of my uncles to an orphanage. She did go and get them back when she got on her own 2 feet, which they were very, very poor. And they went to actually Fort Worth ISD, and they got an education, and all 3 of them made wonderful lives for themselves. My father was a business owner, and was able to provide for our family wealth from that public school.
I know, and that's the thing. The public
and he
school,
was poor.
I think people don't understand the public school. That is how we established our nation and the powerhouse that we are. Most people that are in the legislature went to public schools.
Yes.
And when you ask
Yes.
yourself what has changed, that's why we advocate for returning to a classical model. Pay and train the teachers with the money saved on the technology and the wasteful contracts and the consultants and the vendors that are run through the TEA. And all that rolls downhill to our 1,200 districts. I mean, I'm telling you, we've got solutions, and instead of listening to those solutions and trying to implement them, not through more bills. We don't need any more bills. All of these things
They're
can
too busy
happen
working
through-
for their donors,
I know.
trying to get reelected by
Right.
fooling voters. And it makes me nervous they're going to be turning people away from the Republican Party. And it's not
Well, they
going to be
do, like-
because they're not a conservative at heart. It's because they're upset with who has taken over our party. And I don't feel like, you know, that the party has left me. The electeds have left the party.
Yeah, once they go there, it's bizarre to see the change in behavior.
It is.
So, okay, so let's leave people with action items.
Yep.
So email, call, text your representatives, tell
Visit them.
why. Yes.
And
And tell them
social
why
media.
you don't
But you got to email. That's the most important.
email.
They have to email because
Because they
the
tally that.
offices are looking at that. They're tallying that.
Mhm.
You have to email and try to get to them. And then any questions,
And
they can ask us.
yeah, absolutely. And yeah, if you have
We're
questions,
transparent. We're an open book.
Right.
We post publicly.
We don't have all the answers, but we're trying to give people the tools to
and we'll
to
tell
fight
you the
this
truth.
so that we can save our constitutional republic and ultimately get our kids the best education that they can get.
And if they're in the Dallas area, they can come and see you on the 24th.
24th at I think it's SMU, or it was at Milo's. I don't, they may have had to move.
You'll
because
have it
it's-
on your social
Yeah,
media.
it-
And then
it's-
I'll be in
They're about to
Henderson
sell out.
on Saturday in Rusk County. So if you're out in East Texas and you want to come see me and listen to my debate that I'm going to be doing, I would love for people to be there. And we need people to contact your reps. They need to
Put
hear from
pressure
us
on them.
overwhelmingly. If you can take 2 days off and come down to Austin for the hearing, it's going to be, just dumped as at the last minute of when it is. We can't tell you when it's going to be. They still haven't selected their committees as of today. And come down there, and they need to see us. They need to see us standing together, and they need to hear from conservatives
Right.
on this issue, that this is not conservative. It does not stand with the proposition that was the ballot language. It does not stand with the RPT principles of what it means to be a Republican in Texas. It does not match the plank, and it is unbelievably fiscally irresponsible. $11 billion over 5 years for 98,000 kids. If you take that, and we're saying 98,000 kids for every 5 years, which it's not that, but for fun, let's do that. That's over $22,000. So they're only going to get a $10,000 coupon. That's over double in where? In what?
Right.
And it's going mainly to children that are not already on the government dollars, the kids that are doing homeschool, the kids that are in private school. That is where the majority of the money is going to go to, and it clearly lays it out in the fiscal note.
That's right.
And that's not what voters were asking for, was to give a coupon to people that are already not using the public school system. They want the public school system fixed, or they want those children out of that public school system. That's what they're asking for, and this bill doesn't give them that.
All right. Thanks, everyone.